a member of one of those families is Lou Brooks, who lost her brother Andrew that day. Lou, do you understand why it's taken 5 years for the police to respond to James Jones's review?
Hi, James. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Very welcome.
Yeah, I've got many theories about this report in relation to the timing and the reasons why. One of them is being really that I don't think they mean it. I don't think they're sincere about it at all.
Policing has profoundly failed those lost in Hillsborough tragedy and those profoundly affected by it in the many years since the Hillsborough disaster.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot since yesterday about a lot of things, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm so upset today. I don't think anybody knows, James, what torture they put us through and they continue to put us through. I'm so sorry for crying.
Please don't apologise.
I just feel so bad today.
Because it's presumably the hope that sustains you is the hope that one day the full truth will be told, and that crucially consequences will be faced by the people responsible, and that hope once again has been snatched away. Am I reading it correctly?
You've got it absolutely right, James. And I think for me, as I said in an interview yesterday, I've sacrificed so much because there was always another stepping stone. If you look back at the timeline and the history, there was always something. We always had hope. And after the report, and after obviously Duckenfield admitted everything at the inquest, you know, it should have been a no-brainer, really, you know. And to watch nobody be held accountable for the deaths of our 97 loved ones and the smear campaign against not only our dead loved ones, the survivors, but also us families. David Crompton called us liars. He accused us of lying. David Cameron, he said that we were blind in a dark room looking for a black cat. You know the things, the way we've been treated, and trust me, the way we are still being treated by South Yorkshire Police is unbelievable. I have never known any other disaster where the dead, the survivors and the bereaved are treated with so much hatred and disdain, you know, and
I do.
I feel that I've not had a relationship for 27 years. I moved to Liverpool in the 90s. To be closer to the campaign, because in those days there's no social media or all this, all that. I gave up a brilliant job. I moved to Liverpool to get involved in, you know, the campaign, etc. I'd left my parents, then my mum died suddenly, and I had to return back to Bromsgrove. I had to care then for my terminally ill father. And you know, 2 days before my dad died, I was away at a pre-inquest hearing in London, and my dad died 3 weeks before the inquest began, and I only buried him 10 days before. And I was 17 when Andrew died. It's 4 weeks before my 18th birthday, and I've got no children. I'm never going to have children because I'll be 52, James, in May. And I've got no grandchildren, and I've got no family alive anymore. And I am in such a bad place at the moment because I just don't know where to turn. I don't know where to turn anymore because I really thought we would get justice, and we haven't. And Andy Marsh yesterday, when he said, "We've got justice," we have not got justice. You know, it's disgraceful the way we're treated. And we're still treated like it, but what's so laughable in all of this and just so disgraceful? You hit the nail on the head earlier on. What police have given a code of ethics?
Yeah.
You know, do you or your colleagues have a code of ethics? No, you don't. You know how to behave. You know, and these are police officers, and when they join the force, they swear an oath. Any decent person, especially going into the job of the police, you'd think, you know, well, I've got to be honest if I'm going to be a police officer. I've got to have integrity. I've got to be accountable. And you know what? It's just such an insult, because are they saying that they've never been honest or fair or had integrity?
It's breathtaking. A law requiring police not to lie was being considered by the government.
You see, the other thing, James, about this is I've never campaigned for Hillsborough Law, and I refused to campaign for Hillsborough Law.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't believe in it, but because we've been shafted all these years, and after the Duckenfield sham trials, it made me so ill, and I just couldn't put myself to go through campaigning again for something which I truly believed then, and I believe more so today, that Hillsborough Law will never happen.
I see.
I'd like it to happen, but going back to this report, this is another thing I found really interesting, and I don't know whether anyone else has picked up on it. Hillsborough Law, when the people who have campaigned for it, they've mentioned about this duty of candour and being open and transparent, and this Hillsborough Law would be that there would be fairness, you know, when for bereaved families going to court, etc., etc. So all the principles of the Hillsborough Law campaign is everything now what is in this report. And I've always said, no government, and I don't even believe Labour would do it either, quite frankly, no government would ever have a Hillsborough Law, because if they do, it's not in their interest to have a Hillsborough Law, because the problem we have, and I said yesterday in some of my interviews, until people at the top start taking accountability and start protecting this corruptness within the police force, nothing is ever going to change. And when you've got officers going into witness boxes blatantly lying because they know they are protected not only by their forces and their chief constables, they are protected by the government as well. And that's where the change has got to be. But sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
take all the time you want.
But I don't believe that any government will ever want a Hillsborough Law, because it's not in the government's interest to have a Hillsborough Law, because their main
that it would switch on a spotlight that they might not be able to bear the heat of subsequently.
Yeah, and I think they feel, well, we've got to protect these people who work for us, i.e. the police, even though they're corrupt and they're liars, etc. And this is what is so shameful with our country, James.
I hear you, and you will be aware, of course, that the idea that the police have cleaned up their act in any way, shape, or form in has been blown out of the water by various events in recent years. And you know, it falls to me to acknowledge that many police officers listening to you now will be just as disgusted and just as heartbroken by what you've gone through as other listeners are as well. I know you know that, but I'm conscious of them feeling a sense of shame by association as they listen. Do you have now, and I hesitate to ask this question, Lou Brooks, because I'm frightened of what your answer will be.
Come on.
Do you have any more a clear picture of what you want?
Well, it's not what I'd like is people behind bars and being able to account.
But you've known for a while that was unlikely to happen. Or...
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We've got nowhere to go. There is absolutely...
Right, that's why I was frightened of asking.
Yeah, there is absolutely nowhere to go now. And I feel that they've all got away scot-free, all on their nice, cushy, full-time pensions. And all I'll say is the police service wonder why the public, not all the public, but let me tell you now, the tide's really changing. People who have always supported the police are now not. And that's why there's no respect. And the other thing I'd like to say, Andrew and I were both brought up to respect the police. And it's so funny because I used to say that when I used to walk down Bromsgrove High Street as a teenager, if I saw a police officer, I looked as guilty as anything. I hadn't done anything wrong at all. But it was because when you saw a police officer, you had so much respect for them that, you know, you were scared of doing anything, you know. And now there is no respect for police officers, but I think they've brought a lot of it on themselves, you know. And I think police have got a difficult job. You know, I feel that I'm a very fair and balanced person.
Clearly.
And I do think that they've got a very difficult job. But they've got to start acting like they are not above the law, and they've got to start treating people with respect and dignity.
And when something terrible happens, the first move should be to protect and look after the people to whom it's happened, rather than to protect their own reputation and their own institutional record, if you like. And I sense that you probably don't feel there's been much movement in that direction in the years since you lost Andrew.
No, and I still don't think there is. And I think me and you will be having this same conversation in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, when other events happen in the future and we find out of more police corruption and cover up, and like I say, until it starts changing at the top. But just one quick thing, James.
Of course.
Before, just going back to that newspaper, which I won't give them the credit of naming.
Yeah.
One thing I've always said, they scored an own goal that day, because my family, Andrew and my father, in our house, it was the Sun newspaper on Monday, you know, Monday to Saturday, and on the Sunday it was the News of the World. That is the paper we read, and I will tell you now, I would probably say 90%, maybe even higher than 90%, of the Liverpool fans and those who died on the day and the survivors were probably all readers of that rag.
Yes.
And what that rag did, they SHIT on their own, basically, James. That is exactly what they did.
It was one man, Lou, actually. It wasn't the whole paper. Even the journalist who covered it asked Kelvin Mackenzie to change the front page that day and said what he'd put on there bore no resemblance to what he'd actually witnessed. But it was. I see why the whole newspaper carries the can, but it was one man's decision to do that, and his name is Kelvin Mackenzie.
Yes, yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I saw an interview years ago of that journalist, and that is
before he died.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't aware of that. Sadly, all the good people go young, don't they? And go early.
Can I say something about Andrew? Would you mind?
Not at all.
Can I just say you've done him proud?
He wouldn't say that all the time, James. not when I'm screaming and shouting. He didn't like that.
That's siblings, isn't it?
All swearing. You know, he was 9 years older than me, and he was very, very strict with me. And I think what hurt me the most was he was so law-abiding. I mean, he was a real stickler for rules as well, you know. And that's the other thing, what hurt me the most is that everything what he was accused of being and doing was the complete opposite of the person he was and the way he was, you know.
I do. You've painted a picture of not only the loss and the pain, but the aftermath and the grim, the incomprehensible depravity required to tell lies about your dead brother and everybody who was with him that day, and the pain added to your burdens by members of the British media.